what we're trying to achieve is to maintain the carbon in the soil. Because carbon is finite. As often it's either in the air or it's in the soil. And our tillage practices to date have inverted the soil. So we've destroyed the humus component of our soils. And what happens is then it goes into the atmosphere. So what we're trying to achieve with no-till is to what we call sequestrate the carbon. We're trying to take it from the atmosphere and the plant then put it back into the soil. So it's a combination of always keeping a plant on the surface. And in the process, and then by various means, preferably either with a tine or a disc, to put the new plant in the soil without disturbing it. So you're not losing any humus as a consequence. Humus contents in our soil were in the order of between 1 and 2%. They're currently running at between 5 and 6%. So we've got 4% more humus. So if we hold about 600 millimeters more moisture in our soil. Our climate is becoming more violent. We're not getting those 2-week rains that we used to long ago. What we're doing is we're getting that same amount of water falls in an afternoon or in an hour or two. So we're having huge and massive soil loss because the soil can't absorb the moisture that is falling. So one of the reasons, there are 2 driving reasons. A, to try and sequestrate the carbon, as I mentioned before, to get it from the atmosphere back into the soil through the plant. And also to minimize topsoil loss because nature takes many years to build topsoil. Agriculture has a massive responsibility and it can affect, or it has the potential to change the seriousness of where we find ourselves in global warming. And no-till is one of those practices. But it goes in combination with getting a diversity of plant life back into the soil. So what we do is we don't only plant one type of seed. We plant legumes, we plant herbs, we plant cereals. And the big thing is the only free energy we have in the world today is sunlight. And the only way we can trap that sunlight is through the plant, through the leaf, through the process known as photosynthesis. So if we have bare soil, we're not able to trap that sunlight. And so that as a consequence, what we're trying to attempt here is always to keep a soil cover, always to keep an active leaf growing. And if we can achieve that, then we each are doing our bit, and we can actually impact and reverse to a very large extent. And they talk about agriculture can affect the global warming by at least 30 to 40% just by changing their tillage practices without minimizing anything else. In other words, there's no cost, but you have to have the right tools to do the job. So we're going to demonstrate a little later why we went the route we went. It's not cheap, but in the long term, it's where we believe we should be going. The no-till planter cuts a slot, deposits the seed down in the bottom of the slot, compresses it firmly, and then gently closes that on top again. That's the function, and you can adjust it from 1 centimeter to 50 centimeters deep, and that's all you're left with. So you retain all your humus on top of the ground. And you can see there's no exposed soil, and where it's cut, that generally dies, so it doesn't compete with the newly germinating seed which lies in the bottom of the slot there. So it puts the seed on firm soil. There's a little rubber wheel that covers that seed, compresses it, and then closes it. So that's what you're left with, and you can see almost nothing every 700 millimeters. There's a slot. There's the vetch growing. This has been grazed now, of course. And the oats, if you look carefully, you can see the oats that's in the row that's germinated that the cows have grazed off. practices in Southern Africa have always been that we need to conserve moisture in the summer. That's why we deep rip and leave the lands bare. But if you measure the amount of moisture at the end before we plant those crops, and you've got a cover crop and you've got humus, you have exactly the same moisture available. So there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't, all of us, pursue this, but it's difficult to change the paradigm. We're used to farming the old way. We've got to reconsider. And unfortunately, in this country, we don't have the research facilities that we had in the past, but we've got lessons that we can learn from America, from Australia, all over the world, and it can make a substantial difference. So that's really the story with no-till.